So yesterday I went and picked up a guitar amplifier for my brother. It's an Epiphone Blues Custom 30, and it's a little worse for wear. It's a little rough. It's got some pretty decent sized chips in the Tolex and such, and it did sound good when I tested it originally, but it has a half power switch that switches it to Class A, and what it actually is a triode and pentode switch. So it shorts out one of the screen grids and it makes it these two giant pentodes here, 6L6s, operate as triodes, which is roughly half the power. And according to their advertising, they have it biased when you do that. It switches from Class AB to Class A, which is possible and not too hard to do, but I'll find out later if it actually does that. But when you're in low power mode, it buzzes. It has a hum. It was still playable. It still sounded good, but it buzzes. So there's a couple different reasons. One of those triode switch resistors might be blown up, or it could be a bad capacitor, and there's a lot of different suggestions on the internet. But I found something more obvious, and I'll get you on a tripod and show you what I mean. So any tube heads will immediately see something wrong with these tubes. These tubes are supposed to be a vacuum, and when you're a vacuum, you typically aren't full of milky white smoke and discoloration, and this tube in particular has a very obvious flaw. The only reason these didn't fall apart and shatter is because they're held in with those nice spring clips, which are anti-vibration. Since they're hung upside down and fairly heavy, they can fall out because of vibration, because they're just stabbed into a tube socket up here. They don't like twist lock or anything. Well, these springs are the only thing holding these tubes together. They both have taken a pretty serious impact, and this actually has a back cover, so that tells me the entire amp took a pretty good thump. And it weighs 73 pounds, so I'm not surprised. This thing is an absolute beast to carry around. But I have some extra tubes to toss in here that are actually more correct, air quotes. They're 5881s, mine are Softex. But the schematic says these are supposed to be 5881s, which is a 6L6 in the rest of the world. So I'm going to get these out of here very carefully, possibly with gloves, into a Tupperware. And maybe we'll take one of them apart just for fun to see what's really going on inside there for the lay people. But I'm going to change all the tubes. I think they're all trashed, and I'm going to, any ones that have a intact envelope I will test, but I'm suspecting they've all taken a little more abuse than they need to have. The reverb tank in this is actually wrapped up in a pillow, which is pretty sweet. Knocking on the cabinet doesn't make any noise or anything like that. But I'm going to take it apart and make sure that the springs are intact and that sort of stuff. The cooling fan on this unit, because this is a tube amp that actually has a cooling fan, is all clogged up and makes grindy noises. And all the knobs on the front are installed wrong, like physically like turned when they were pushed on. So I think this thing's been apart before. Lots of the nuts are scratched up and stuff, so it was taken apart with pliers. And all the knobs and switches all crackle when you play with them. So I'm going to take it apart, going to clean it up, and I think for the $150 we paid for it, this thing is a still good deal. Anyone who's known me long enough knows I have a lifelong fear of broken glass after my mother was injured by it when I was a kid, and it's just family tradition to avoid glass when you can. So of course I get into tubes, right? That makes sense. So I'll put on my dirty mechanics gloves. One layer of protection between me and it. So this tube lost its vacuum, it looks like, but it appears to be intact as far as the glass goes, so these might have been mishandled before they were even installed. But I'll test this one and see what it's up to. It doesn't look like the regular getter, so I'm guessing it's not supposed to be like that. I gotta squeeze very gently so the glass doesn't shatter. Once the envelope on a tube is damaged, or even a light bulb, they have no structure, and they become very, very easy to shatter. Luckily, the structure in here is actually tight inside a tube, so this makes for a really cool demonstration model now. But yeah, that sucker not vacuum anymore. So to see what's up, but the contacts look pretty good, which is good because part of the behavior was getting out of this seemed like dirty tube sockets, but that'll do it. Yeah, that'll do it. So I installed a set of Softet 5881s, and 5881s have a flatter top than the more round 6L6s, and I think the edge inside these holders could have damaged the glass on those other ones, and I think they're meant to sit on the flat top 5881s, but we'll have to give it a try. The main power fuse isn't blown, the high T fuse isn't blown either, so I'd be willing to try it as it is and see what it does. These are leftover tubes out of my B52. I put a set of Chineses in it, and it's more than happy with them. They're a little brighter because they're fresher. These tubes are old. I mean, these are, what, from 2008? So God knows how many miles are on them. That amp did a lot of sitting, though. But I'm going to flip it around, give it a try, and see what it thinks. So first thing I noticed is this thing is way louder with both tubes functioning. And there's no hum when you drop it to 15 watts. Alright, I guess I'll clean up some switches, and they're a lot better than they were. Clean up some pots and change out that fan, and I think it's about done. I'll check the bias and make sure it's where it needs to be, but it sure sounds a whole lot better.